Hey everyone, thanks so much for being here. Today we're diving into a topic that's not only way more common than people like to admit, but also incredibly frustrating to deal with, and that's constipation. Now, if you're thinking, okay, is this just going to be another talk about drinking more water and eating more fiber? Don't worry. That's not where we're going with this. You've probably already tried that anyway, right? Today, we're going beyond the basics because I talk to people every week who are doing a lot of the right things. They're taking their Miralax or magnesium or a fiber supplement. They're trying to eat healthier, but they're still backed up. And often all that fiber is actually making them feel bloated and feel even worse. And what a lot of people don't realize is that your diet, the specific foods you're eating, and how you're pairing them with your medications or supplements can either help move things along or totally work against you. So, in this episode, I'm going to walk you through some of the foods that actually make constipation worse, even the ones that seem healthy, what your gut really needs to start moving again, how timing makes a difference, and what small daily shifts can actually help you feel better without going to extremes. So let's break this down together because your gut deserves more than just guesswork. So let's start by talking about something that surprises a lot of people. Constipation is not just about whether you're taking the right laxative or the right fiber supplement. Your gut doesn't work in a vacuum. It responds to everything that you're putting into it. So if you're using something like Miralax or magnesium and it's still not working, we have to zoom out and look at the whole picture, including your meals. Because here's the thing, some foods that seem totally harmless or even healthy can actually be slowing things down. And in some cases, it's not just one food, it's a combination of foods. So let's talk about high fat meals first. Fat takes a long time to digest. So actually, the higher fat a meal is, the slower digestion is. So if your motility is already sluggish, a heavy meal like mac and cheese, an Alfredo pasta dish, or something fried like a breaded chicken sandwich with French fries is going to sit in your stomach longer, and that delays transit time. And even something, so those are unhealthy foods in general that I just listed, but what about something like avocado toast? Well, that's a healthy fat, but let's say you load it up with cheese and a poached egg on top and pair it with coffee with cream. So that's a lot of fat all at the same time. And if you have that first thing in the morning, if your gut's already struggling to move, it can just slow things down more. Now let's layer in fiber. So let's say you have a difficult kind of fiber or the wrong combo. So let's take a kale salad with chickpeas, sunflower seeds, and raw bell peppers. And while that might sound like a healthy lunch, and it is for some people, if your gut is slow, that combo of rough raw greens, skin, seeds, and legumes can be hard to break down and make everything feel worse. Fiber also takes a while to break down and digest. So it takes longer to move through, which can cause more bloating, cramping, and definitely no relief if you're already sluggish. Another one I see all the time is, let's say someone has a healthy high fiber breakfast. Maybe you have oatmeal with chia seeds and almond butter, but you're not drinking enough water and your motility is already sluggish. That meal can actually backfire. You've got sticky, soluble fiber, thick nut butter, and sometimes even added protein powders can thicken it up even more. And then you're wondering why you feel like you're dragging a brick around in your gut all day. So, hydration along with the high fiber foods is critical. And then there's dairy, heavier dairy like cheese and ice cream. They're super low in fiber and they can tend to bind people up, especially if your gut is sensitive or if you're already a little dehydrated. So if you're pairing cheese with something else that's constipating, like crackers with not enough fiber or a meat-heavy charcuterie board, it's just stacking the deck against you. And even things like bananas can go either way. A ripe banana can be helpful for some people, but an unripe or barely yellow one, which is high in resistant starch, which I recommend for feeding good bacteria, Well, that can firm up stool, which is great for people who are more diarrhea prone, but if you're already constipated, it may not be your friend. So the bottom line is none of these foods are bad. They're not off limits. But if your gut is slow or you're trying to get your meds or supplements to actually work, you have to be strategic about what you're eating and how you're putting those meals together. So now that we've covered some of the things that can slow your gut down, let's shift gears and talk about what actually helps. Because there are absolutely foods that can support motility and work with your medications or supplements instead of working against them. So, first up, cooked vegetables. And these are honestly one of my favorite constipation friendly tools because they're gentle, versatile. They still give you fiber, but in a form that's much easier for your gut to break down so they move through more quickly. So we're talking about steamed zucchini, sauteed spinach, roasted carrots, peeled and cooked sweet potato, and so when the fiber is softened through cooking, your gut doesn't have to work so hard to break it down. And if you've been trying to eat more vegetables and feel like they just sit there like a rock in your stomach, try cooking them down and see what a difference it makes. So then there's soluble fiber. And let me pause here because we just talked about how something like chia seeds in a thick oatmeal bowl can backfire if you're not hydrating or if your gut's already feeling stuck. But I want to clarify that it's not that oats or chia are bad or that they couldn't be helpful for constipation. It's about how you're using them. So soluble fiber is the kind of fiber that absorbs water and creates a gel-like texture in your gut, which helps to soften stool and make it easier to pass. It's just that it needs adequate hydration and sometimes a gentler delivery. So if you are doing oats or chia, which by the way, I have a great recipe for low FODMAP overnight oats that has chia seeds and oats that I recommend all the time for constipation. I'll put that link in the notes here. But if you are doing them, you just want to add enough liquid, first of all, in the cooking. So try making them thinner, like a runny porridge consistency with extra liquid, or like a chia pudding that's more kind of fluid, or go with flax meal sprinkled into a smoothie instead, or a little psyllium husk mixed into something warm and diluted. So these are examples of soluble fiber with enough water to give you that soft, hydrating effect, not a dry and dense effect. Another good go-to would be fruit for natural motility support. Kiwi is amazing, and there's actually research showing it helps with stool consistency and frequency, and it's usually very well tolerated. Ripe bananas, again, if you're dealing with constipation, not green or barely yellow, but soft and spotty, can help thanks to their soluble fiber and prebiotic content. And of course, prunes. So prunes are not just for your grandma. The natural sugars in prunes, especially the sorbitol and the fructose, can gently stimulate the bowels. So if you're in a place where everything feels hard to tolerate, you have a really sensitive system, that's when I really like using soups or purees. You can blend up vegetable soup that has cooked carrots, zucchini, squash, and that can be very soothing and effective. Also, applesauce, smoothies with a bit of flax, or even pureed root veggies with broth. These all count. They give you fiber, fluids, and nutrients in a form that's easy to digest. And here's an example where FODMAPs might not be a bad thing, and it certainly is individual for everyone. So a lot of you who have IBS are aware of the low FODMAP diet or what FODMAPs are. In general, they're foods that can contribute to bloating and abdominal discomfort and diarrhea in some cases, or looser stools. But it's all individual. So not all of the FODMAPs are going to affect everybody the same. So the low FODMAP diet involves eliminating them and then reintroducing them to see which ones you tolerate. And for people who deal with chronic constipation, some of the FODMAPs, like the prunes I just mentioned or applesauce, might actually be helpful because, again, in some people, they have a effect where they draw water into the stool. And so people who are more diarrhea prone, they can cause problems. But if you're more constipation prone, drawing water into the stool is exactly what you need. So in that case, certain FODMAPs, like the ones high in sorbitol, like many, almost, I'd say most of the high FODMAP fruits, apples, peaches, plums, nectarines, pears, are high in sorbitol. And even foods that are high in fructose or mannitol can draw water into the stool and have that helpful effect if you deal with constipation. So that's a little FODMAP caveat of how to strategically use foods depending on what's going on with your system. And just remember, when it comes to this fiber conversation in general, it's not always about hitting some really high fiber target. So if your system's not used to a lot of fiber, we want to increase that gradually, choose the right types of fiber in the right form at the right time for your gut. So that brings us to the next part of the conversation where we are going to talk more deeply about hydration. So I know I said at the beginning of this conversation that we're not just going to be talking about the basics, fiber and water. And I did mean that, but we still do need to talk about hydration because it's one of the most common reasons people's constipation strategies fall apart, but we need to talk about it more specifically and more strategically to make it work for you. So we're going to go beyond just drinking 8 glasses a day in this conversation. And when you are using fiber, whether that's from food or supplements, your gut needs water to actually make use of it. So again, soluble fiber pulls water into the gut and forms this soft gel-like consistency in your intestines that helps things move through. But not if you're not drinking enough water. That same fiber turns into this heavy, sticky mass that just sits there, and it can actually slow things down even more. So take psyllium husk, for example. Have you ever tried stirring a scoop of psyllium or a different fiber supplement into a glass of water, but you didn't use enough fluid? And if you haven't, try it next time. Try stirring your scoop of fiber. Try stirring in just 3 or 4 ounces of water instead of the 8 ounces that's recommended, and let it sit there for a couple minutes. What happens is you get sludge. You could pick it up with a spoon and slop it back down. It's thick and jelly-like and goopy, and that's actually what it can turn into in your gut when you're not drinking enough water with it. And that sludge does not move easily. It firms up your stool and not in a helpful way. So the last thing you need is a brick in your gut that won't move. And that's why you need to drink a full glass of water when you take your fiber supplements. Not a sip, not half a cup, a full glass, maybe even more, to help that fiber expand and move properly rather than turning into that brick. And even if you are drinking enough water, there's another piece that often gets missed, and that's electrolytes, because water on its own is not always enough. Without minerals, your body actually can't hold on to the water that you're drinking. It just runs right through you. It's like pouring water through a sieve. Your gut, your cells, your tissues, they're not absorbing it, they're losing it. So let's talk really quick about how to fix that. You can add a pinch of sea salt to a glass of water once or twice a day. This can help your body actually retain what you're drinking. You can bring potassium-rich foods into your diet, and this is a really good strategy. So that would be things like avocado, coconut water, cooked spinach, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, oranges. These are natural motility and hydration supporters. And then consider a balanced electrolyte powder. Just be mindful of the type or electrolyte powder, I say, because a lot of the drinks, the standard ones you'll see in the grocery store, they're super heavy in sodium and maybe they have a dash of potassium, but that's it. They're missing the full spectrum of minerals like magnesium, calcium, trace minerals that your body actually needs to maintain hydration at a cellular level. And some of them are loaded with sugar and artificial sweeteners and maybe even artificial colorings, and that doesn't help your gut either. So yes, we're going beyond just drink more water, but honestly, the hydration has to be dialed in. The timing matters, the minerals matter, electrolytes matter, and how you space everything out. All those details can make a huge difference. Let's talk a little bit more about timing because this topic doesn't get nearly enough attention when it comes to constipation. So, how and when you take your supplements or medications, and even when you eat your meals, can either make your gut feel supported or make everything more difficult. And I know timing can feel like this extra layer of complexity, especially when you're already juggling a bunch of things. But once you understand a few basics, it becomes way more doable. Let's start with magnesium citrate or magnesium oxide. Those of you who are familiar with me and my work, or if you're a past patient of mine who deals with constipation, you know these are a couple of my favorite tools to help with constipation. A lot of you might already be taking them, and a lot of people do use these for constipation support, but these work best when taken on an empty stomach, typically in the evening. And that's because your digestive tract is quieter at night, and magnesium can work more gently to pull water into the intestines while you sleep, helping you wake up with the urge to go. If you take it right after dinner or alongside other supplements, it may not work as well to draw water into the intestines, so give it a little space to do its job. I usually tell my patients take it at bedtime, ideally at least an hour or two after your last meal. Second, you don't want to stack everything all at once. I see a lot of people throw their entire supplement routine into one big smoothie or take everything with breakfast because it's convenient, but that can be a problem. Fiber, magnesium, probiotics, digestive enzymes, they can all interact or compete. Now, if you are mixing up your fiber with like your IgG powder or a prebiotic in a morning drink, that's something I often recommend to my patients for convenience. That's actually totally fine. That's a gut focused combo, and I actually recommend doing it that way because those are all kind of similar and they work directly in the gut or on the gut lining, and they need to be spaced away from other meds and supplements. But you don't want to mix up all of your supplements together because some of them can interact. And when it comes to meal timing, this matters too, especially for people who are relying on medications or supplements to get things going. So, for instance, if you take your fiber or magnesium right before a huge heavy meal, that can actually delay its effect. It kind of gets stuck like in a traffic jam where your body's too focused on breaking down that food, and the supplement just kind of gets pushed to the back or to the side and has to wait. And so what's often better is to take your fiber between meals or alongside a lighter meal that is not high in fat. And the same goes for your magnesium. Let it work in the background, not during a digestive traffic jam. And if you're looking at increasing your fiber through food, make sure to go slow. I know it's tempting to just overhaul everything overnight, but your gut does not like big surprises. And I recommend when you're increasing your dietary fiber, add an extra 3 to 5 grams every few days, maybe adding a small serving of cooked lentils or a spoonful of ground flaxseed to your breakfast, and then give your gut some time to adapt. Too much too fast, especially if you're already constipated, often leads to bloating, discomfort, and discouragement. So the takeaway here is supplements and foods are helpful tools, but how you use them makes all the difference. Timing isn't everything, but when your gut is struggling, it can absolutely be the thing that tips the scale towards progress. Now, I want to pull all of this together and show you how to use this info to create a day that actually supports your gut, not just for quick relief, but for long-term consistency. So let's talk about the everyday habits that seem so simple, but when they're done consistently, they can make a huge difference in how your gut functions. The first one is eat on a regular schedule. I know life gets busy, but your gut loves rhythm. It runs on something called the migrating motor complex, and that's your gut's built-in cleaning wave that sweeps through between meals. But the catch is it only activates when you're not eating. So if you're grazing all day or skipping meals entirely and then eating a huge dinner at 8 p.m., your gut doesn't get that full wave. And that can slow things down, disrupt motility, and contribute to constipation over time because waste isn't getting moved through the way that it should. Try to stick with 3 consistent meals a day, spaced 3 to 5 hours apart. Even if you're not a big breakfast person, start with something light like a warm smoothie, some stewed apples, or a bowl of cooked fruit with cinnamon. Eating early in the day gives your digestive system a signal that it's time to wake up and get moving. It activates those hormonal and neurological pathways that stimulate gut motility. And the earlier you start that rhythm, the better chance your body has to complete a full digestive cycle by the end of the day. Skipping breakfast or delaying food for too long can stall that process and make constipation worse over time. So give your gut a kickstart by eating something early in the morning. And the next thing is light movement in the morning. Now, you do not need to start your day with an intense workout to get your gut going. We're talking about a 10-minute walk after breakfast, and this will do more for your bowels than a double espresso. So, walk your dog, do some light stretching, or even a few laps around your kitchen while you're tidying up, tidy up the house a little bit. It's all about waking up your nervous system, getting the blood flowing, and that gently stimulates the digestive reflex. Another easy one to overlook is gentle digestive stimulants, things like bitters. If you can tolerate them, a few drops of digestive bitters or even warm lemon water before a meal can cue your stomach to start producing stomach acid and digestive enzymes. Bitters also help stimulate bile flow from the liver and gallbladder, which not only supports fat digestion, but can help with motility and stool movement in some people, especially if sluggish bile flow is part of why you're having constipation. Not everybody tolerates lemon or vinegar-based bitters, though. So if you're sensitive, you could try ginger tea or a few sips of broth instead. It's really just about triggering that prep phase of digestion where your whole gut gears up for what's coming. You could even smell a lemon slice. That gets that cephalic phase going where your brain triggers that something is happening. And when you feel your mouth start to water and salivate, your whole digestive system is starting to release fluids and enzymes and bile. So that's a good jump start. And lastly, although it sounds basic, chew your food, like really chew your food up. And this one sounds like a throwaway tip, but honestly, I can't tell you how many people feel the difference just by slowing down and chewing more thoroughly. Your stomach and intestines are already working hard enough. If you send down big chunks of food, especially fibrous or high fat meals, you're asking your gut to do extra lifting that it might not be up for right now. So try putting your fork down between bites or counting your chews. Start with 15 to 20 chews. You'll have to resist that swallow reflex and you'll get the hang of it with practice. It's awkward, but it does help. It's awkward at first. You'll get used to it and it does make a big difference. So these are the kind of changes that seem small on their own, but when you put them together and they become part of your routine, they lay the foundation for everything else to work better. Your meds, your fiber, your hydration, everything. Now, in this last section, I'm going to show you how to tie all of this together and create a simple daily rhythm that actually supports your gut rather than working against it. For this, I want to quickly touch on something that's really important, especially if you've tried all the usual tips and you still feel stuck. For some people, constipation is not just about fiber and hydration or even sluggish motility. There could be something deeper going on, and I'm talking about your microbiome. And these are hidden issues that I see in my practice all the time. So the two things that are most common that contribute to chronic constipation are methane overgrowth, and this is what many people may call methane SIBO or EMO, which is intestinal methanogen overgrowth. Same condition, it's just whether or not it's in the small intestine or all the way through the intestine. Or candida overgrowth is another one. So both of these can actually slow down your gut. Methane is a gas that leads to paralysis of motility. Its purpose is to slow down digestion enough so that we can digest our food. But when we have an overgrowth of bacteria that produce methane, things slow down too much and we get constipated. Candida, on the other hand, which is yeast in the gut, Well, candida can be anywhere, but when we see it in the gut, it can cause inflammation, bloating, and sometimes even lead to alternating constipation and diarrhea, depending on what else is going on in your gut ecosystem. And these things don't always show up in obvious ways. You might just feel bloated after meals, or like your stool is dry and hard no matter what you eat. Maybe you're always backed up when you travel, or you're told it's just IBS-C and it's left at that. So if that's you, there could be an underlying imbalance driving your constipation. And if that's the case, no amount of magnesium or fiber is going to truly fix it for good until the root cause is addressed. These are things that can be tested for and identified through gut testing, through looking at your whole clinical profile. And this is exactly the type of thing we work on in our practice here at Nutrition Resolution. So if you suspect there's more going on, you've tried the basics, you're tired of living with this chronic constipation that doesn't budge, we can help you figure out what your gut is really asking for. And that might be gentle antimicrobial support, personalizing your magnesium dosing. Magnesium can be titrated up to a more effective dose than the label dose. So if you're taking whatever the label says to take of magnesium citrate and it's not helping, we help our clients work it up gradually and safely to a higher dose. Some people need 800 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams. It's person specific, but I do recommend doing that with the support and guidance of a healthcare provider. If you've been using laxatives or fiber supplements or magnesium, you're still not seeing results, please don't assume it means they're not working. So often it's not about the product, it's about what's going on around it. So look at your meals, look at your hydration, look at your electrolytes, look at your timing. Are you grazing all day? Are you stacking all your supplements at once? Are you eating enough early in the day to even get your gut rhythm started? Are you moving early in the day? Because sometimes the fix is not some big dramatic overhaul. It's small things like switching from a raw kale salad to a warm blended soup, or realizing that you're drinking water but not holding on to water. You need electrolytes, or spacing your fiber and your meds a little differently so they're not competing and being taken at the same time. These little tweaks can be what finally makes things start to shift for you. So thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I hope this gave you some clarity. And more importantly, I hope it gave you a sense of hope that your gut can improve. You just need the right strategy. Try these things, and if you need more support, reach out to us. Our information is in the show notes. And if you found this helpful, please share it with somebody and subscribe, because it really helps us to continue to support you. Thanks so much, and see you next week.